So I want to say first and foremost, thank you all so much for coming. When our Federico Toledo told me recently, I'm coming from Uruguay, I'm coming back to the Bay for a little bit, and I want to get some of our local leaders together, create an event leaders for leaders. I was like, under this short notice, but we spun something up quickly. And also, I want to say thank you so much to Abstracta for not only supporting this event, but also donating an amazing mini drone, which you're gonna have to stick around for after the Q&A. I know, there'll be a raffle. But this event is not about me. This event is about these incredible speakers that I love so much. And also this amazing human. You're gonna learn all about them in a moment. But I would be amiss to not thank another amazing partner who made this all happen, Dovetail, for lending us space. Can we get a round of applause for Dovetail? Yes. And real fast, while I grab Zach some wine, can you just...
So yes, this is Dovetail's San Francisco office. It's a Series B startup based in Sydney. So all the engineering teams are in Australia. Go to marketing and everything is here. This is where the magic happens. Dovetail is a customer insights hub. We work very closely with research, design, and product teams to help them decide what to build next. So if you're interested, I run their community. It's over 8,000 members strong. Happy to chat. And without further ado, let's move on from Dovetail.
Amazing. I think Tristan has something else to say, or are we done?
No, I talk way too much. Back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful for all of you for coming, and also with Tristan for helping with the organization of this amazing event. Thank you, Tristan. An applause also for Tristan, please. Thank you, everyone, all of you, for accepting the invitation with a short notice. I was really looking forward for this conversation with all of you and learning about the current challenges that we have as leaders in this space with all what's happening with after the pandemic. Some of us are working in the office, some of us are working remotely, hybrid environments, and also with the hype of Gen AI and all of that also happening. I'm really interested in learning how you are facing this type of challenges today. But bear with me with this. I have a little game for starters. My first challenge for you is to introduce yourself in 1 minute and tell how you think you got here. And I'm not talking about commuting, right? So 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Fedi. My name is Zach Dickinson. I lead the quality engineering organization at a company called Intuitive Surgical. We are the leading medical device manufacturer for surgical robotics. I've been with the organization for about 18 years. It's been a really long journey. The company's done a lot of evolution, a lot of growth. And I want to say I'm here because I dress so well and my wife's from South America. But no, I think I'm here to provide insights. I come kind of from a unique area within the quality engineering space. We're very heavily regulated around the globe, and things are different in the environment that we live in, but we still try to stay as modern as possible with quality engineering processes, structures, strategies, et cetera. So excited to learn, share the things I've been through, the knowledge and my perspective. Thanks.
Amazing. Can you pass the mic? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Dukes, and I'm the head of quality engineering at Credit Karma. I've been there for almost 10 years, and I've worked in the finance and fintech space for about 20 years now, which is kind of scary. I lead a team of about 60 testers and DevOps focused testing engineers. And, you know, when I was saying out on the patio, when I first started at Credit Karma, when I was first interviewing there, I really didn't understand what Credit Karma did or how they made money or how they were going to be a sustainable business. But what I did fall in love with was to focus on how we help consumers with financial education and financial products. And it was a pretty big welcome. Most of the financial companies I worked at, while they were consumer-based, were still very much in favor of sort of big financial companies. And so being able to focus on how to really help people, was really great. Sort of how I ended up here. When I was in high school, I remember taking one of those tests where you're trying to figure out like what you're going to do when you grow up. And my response came back really confusing. And it said I was either going to be a carpenter or a stockbroker. And none of that really made sense to me until now, when I think about the fact that I do love to build things, and I build things every day, and I work in the financial industry. So I think somehow somebody had figured this out a long time ago for me.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Manoj. I actually started my career as a manual tester at a company called Citrix that builds like remote access software, and slowly evolved into like leadership roles. And right now I'm at Shippo, leading the entire engineering organization, focused on like building products, thinking about quality first, and how do you build quality in rather than quality after or out. That's always like first principle for me, and pushing for practices, tools, processes that help us move in that direction. And I love to talk about people. So I think those are some of the things we'll talk about: technology, people, process.
Thank you.
1 minute. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks everybody for coming out. It's super fun to be out of my shed. My name is Adam Christian. I've been in the Bay doing basically early tech stuff since 2006. I think the notable connection is the Sauce Labs connection. I was an early employee there, and we built crazy, data center setups, containerization. How do we automate iPhones? How do we automate Androids? How do we scale Mac in a virtualized way? And wound up VP of engineering there for a number of years, and built a really super fun, fast moving engineering team. And really shaped my career, right? The goal was like, how do we take quality assurance and flip it on its head and rethink it and make it all about quality engineering, right? And turn this into like one of the, primary chunks of how engineers work and think, and CI and CD and pipelines and all that came after that. And now I have a small startup, and we're trying to do the same thing for engineering documentation. And stoked to be talking about all this stuff. Yeah.
And he brought some swag, y'all.
I did bring some super cool swag, and it's for an open source thing, most of it, called runme.dev. You should check out. So grab whatever you're into back there. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for the introductions, and try to keep in 1 minute, because I believe that this is part of the challenges of every leader. We need to take into consideration a lot of restrictions and deliver something really fast and with good quality. So thank you for that. My first question. Can you discuss a time when you had to make a difficult decision between quality and time to market, and how was your approach to solve that dilemma? And I would like Manoj to take the lead with this one.
I think, isn't that a question every day? I think the trade-off between velocity and speed and quality is a question that everybody has to deal with in some capacity, even at executive level, where they're like, we want to move very fast, but quality shouldn't be compromised. And when you talk to the quality engineers, they're like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I think the way to have those conversations and discussions is around ensuring that there is enough quality that allows you to build iteratively and measure the impact of things that you're doing in a fashion that allows you to move fast, right? So rather than thinking of anything that you're launching as like a big bang thing, if you start to think about building iteratively with high quality small things and measure how things are progressing and responding, you can have metrics like NPS, error rates, and several other metrics that allow you to see how you're actually objectively doing in the system and set expectations with customers and internal stakeholders. You get a more objective view of, you know, where are the trade-offs that you can make on an ongoing basis. So that's how I usually look at like balancing using data as an example.
Anything to add?
I think that's an approach many, like that we all want to live by. I think I really try to focus on understanding risk. I often tell my team, it's better to know what we didn't do than what we did do. So if we know there was a key component of a feature, or if we know there was a key component of our plan that we were not able to execute, that should be at the forefront of what we're communicating, and having data that can really help explain the size of that risk and sort of what's left on the table.
Which kind of data, particularly? Because Manish mentioned NPS. Any other metric that helps you to understand if you are being slow delivering something, or if you are not reaching the expectation of the users in terms of quality?
We have a lot of different metrics. One that I really like using, which is not sort of a calculated metric, is just around testability. We've invested a lot in understanding what can be tested and what cannot be tested, in what environments, with real users versus test users, and how that relates to other risks with revenue. We have regular review processes to make sure that leadership understands these testability gaps, that they understand the workarounds, et cetera. And so like when we do failover events, it's often sort of what testability issues can we not cover that we know we won't be able to encounter any level of observability until we get to production.
Anything else related to? Yeah, I saw that you wanted to add something.
I wanted to add one thing. I think the context around what kind of product you're building for, like a B2C company has a very different quality bar than what you would expect a B2B company to have, and like keeping that as a context in terms of like how you measure quality is a key component to think about from a trade-offs perspective.
Perfect. I will move to the following question, which is what outdated software testing practices do you see teams still clinging to, and how do you encourage adoption of more modern approaches? And I will go with Adam first.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, it's a great question. I would think, over time, when you interact with different companies of different sizes in, different parts of the world, it's really interesting because you see, folks in fintech space, folks with really sensitive data, spending time in Europe. You have these, sort of release train stuff that folks are still doing. You have these really strict, release processes, and stuff is walled off. And one of the things that has been so fun in my career about spending time in the Bay Area is watching like these sort of mid-tier companies break things open, right? Like, like you released a production on your first day, right? And with web apps and things like that, it's a little bit easier to make that a reality. But I think that's one of the other questions. I'm not going to try to get into it, but when the culture of your engineering team is all about how do we make it so that we can move faster and everybody's on that page, I think that's pretty exciting. And so, I think a big part of my learnings was in SOS when we were trying to get people to do test automation was being patient. Like it takes 20 years for a lot of companies to catch up to reality, and giving them incremental ways to adopt stuff is a huge part of being successful. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's all the things that came to mind. I tried to get it out in some sort of reasonably concise way.
But maybe to address something in particular related to that question, something that I've seen many times is that developers prefer to focus on coding, and then you have an outsourced team somewhere else focusing on QA, and they are not talking to each other anymore, right, or enough. So, and we all know that probably is more efficient to have the software engineers to also adopt some part of the testing activities in their development activities, right? So how do you influence developers to also consider this type of practices, not only testers,
Yeah. So, I can just tell you, Sauce Labs was a company that was all about building products for testing, right? And so there was no QA team, right? It was all about quality is built into each team, and we tried really hard to try to make thinking about quality part of the defaults of how people did things, right? So you have fixtures, and when you create new parts of the application or whatever it is, it yell at you if that was not completed when a PR went up, that kind of a thing. And so even our support team was part of the engineering organization. So we thought about test code and test infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, sort of on the same exact playing field and level as delivering product. And I thought that was really it also kept people around, but I thought that was a healthy way to think about it.
Do you have anything to add, Zach? Because I know that you have special challenges in your role, in your context of a very regulated environment, right?
I do. It's an interesting environment from a software quality perspective, because the quality of our product can potentially impact people's lives. And we take that very passionately and very centric to the work that we do. But just like any other software quality organization, you're always asked to compromise. You're always asked to hit deadlines, things of that nature. You have to take risk-based approaches. You have to understand your risk severities, your impacts, the likelihoods, et cetera. But for me, particularly trying to find ways to really evaluate the impacts and make more data-driven decisions around your approaches and around your focus and things of that nature, and really working with the developers and the engineers as early as possible. Like even when you're defining your design inputs and your requirements, we try to have quality collaboration to defining the test strategy. And really the way that I describe it is designing your product around the quality strategy versus designing your quality strategy around the product design. And it's key to coming in as early as possible. Even when you're defining your design, how are you going to test it? What are the scenarios you're going to be thinking about? And instilling that in the developers so they know ahead of time how their code's going to be tested, right, before they're even developing it. So they're thinking about their scenarios and they're doing kind of a more traditional quality by design approach.
How do you manage to be compliant with the requirements of your specific context according to this? I mean, do you have specific restrictions or requirements that you need to also deliver?
Yeah, I mean, the FDA and other regulation bodies around the globe have specific requirements around certain things that you have to evaluate, that you have to show, that you have to approve. So those are pretty, for the most part, clear cut, but you have to bring that in as early as possible so that we're not finding these things out late in your software development lifecycle, right? So you're finding these things as early as possible so you really can be efficient and you really can be optimal in more of an agile type environment and things, and not be as waterfall and not find surprises as early as possible. And again, really designing with your quality strategy so you're working together, not working in opposites.
Perfect. I will change a little bit the topic. What strategies have you found successful for recruiting and retaining top talent in software quality roles? Stephanie, want to go first?
Well, so as I mentioned, I've been at Credit Karma for almost 10 years. When I started, it was myself and 3 other people sort of in the testing space. And when I started, we did not have an onboarding process. I think I saw my manager, the first day, and then 2 months later, and then I really wasn't introduced to even the other people in testing roles directly. And so when I actually started managing the team, something that I really wanted to invest in was our onboarding process, our knowledge sharing, how we can retain institutional knowledge, how we can create sort of subject matter expertise and share it. I additionally, really involved my existing team in the process to create our career frameworks, to participate in hiring and think about that process. And then, on top of that, just also trying to help people understand their own personal bias and how we all often are going to compare people to ourselves. And, I have people on my team that have been there for 10 years. I have people that have been there for 8, 7, 6, 5 years. And they're fantastic interviewers, but they don't always acknowledge the level of institutional knowledge and the experience they have within our company, not just with the industry. And so we've done a lot to invest in training around unconscious bias. We've done a lot to focus on, communication-based training. We've done DISC. We've had Erica Chestnut come in and do a lot of training, even just kind of bringing the team together. And so I think a lot of that investment has really helped not only keep people on the team, but have them feel like they are continuing to learn and that they are able to help shape the team in the direction that we're going in. Additionally, something that we did last week, actually, we had a 2-day offsite with the team. And there were a couple of things I was trying to accomplish. One, obviously, I want the team to focus on strategy, and I want to be thinking about our vision for the next 3 years, especially with things like Gen AI and all of these tools that are coming out. But I also wanted to acknowledge that we had all been in execution mode since at least 2020. And when we look at problems in our day-to-day, we're often trying to figure out the quickest path to diagnosing the problem and solving it. And so, something I try to do for my teams is create these experiences to practice these skills in a safe space, but also to, feel empowered to set the direction of our team, that it's not just myself or the managers.
So it's a lot about training, helping them understand the value of being part of the team as well, and showing that to everyone. I guess it's not an easy task to do, but anything to add?
I was going to add on the same lines of what you said of like, how do they feel valued as a person, as a human being, and tying their work to the business impact that they're able to drive and create. I think a lot of times quality engineers feel that they're not empowered, or they don't have the level of influence that they would usually expect. Is they're thought about as like, these are the people who bring problems to us because they're identifying bugs, right? But how do you get them to a point where the engineers are wanting to work with them because they know and believe that these people are gonna actually help them prevent things from happening? Because the last thing you want is your code to be impacting customers, right? So setting them up in a fashion that allows them to be valued and acknowledged and recognized for the work is like one area where I feel they continue, like it's a continuous work. But if your organization is viewed as the team that brings in a lot of value and actually helps deliver the business impact with quality, with velocity, I think that's one of the things that I find very motivating for quality engineers. I think the other key trait that I've experienced through 20 plus years of experience working with quality engineers, they're always wanting and willing to learn new things. They're like genuinely curious about things, and that's why they're always looking at the same thing and expecting something else. So if you feed that curiosity with opportunities for them to learn new things, they learn about test infrastructure, they learn about sauce labs, giving them opportunities to learn new things is another way that I've helped them grow.
A small thing I could add if we have a second. Super early in my career, I thought that unhappiness from people on my team was coming from, pushing them too hard and giving them too much work. And sort of over time, what I found was actually people would go crazy staying up all night, building tons of stuff, as long as they had some sort of alignment between what they did during the day, what sort of an impact they were trying to have, and what that meant to the business, right? Like that alignment is like, I'm coming in here every day and I'm crushing it. As long as I feel like I'm really moving the needle in a meaningful way, that's like, I'm down for that. And then you can layer things on top of that, like you said, personal development, right? You're somebody who does, focuses on quality all day, but you say, go learn Rust or Kubernetes. I'm going to send you to this conference, go do something totally different with your brain. What I loved about that was that ideas came back into that team or part of the organization that that moved the needle in a way that you maybe would not have predicted. Yeah.
It's important for everyone to understand that your contribution, your time spent in the company is doing a difference for the company, the impact that you are looking for as a group, right? Amazing. Different question. How do you see, because you mentioned that you get together to think how things are going to be in the next 3 years. I wonder how you see the landscape of software quality changing in the next 2-3 years, and how are you preparing your team for these changes? Who wants to take on that one?
I feel like we haven't heard from that.
So in my space, I'm trying to digitize the healthcare space, if you will, and bring a lot of modern technology into a very regulated environment. And the technology that we're building is becoming, and I assume it's relative to everyone in this room, is becoming more and more complex. And the landscape and the ecosystem is having more and more relationships, and you could say compatibility, if you will, to so many different products, technologies, services, et cetera. So for me, one thing I'm starting to think about and really focus on is kind of what I'm going to call continuous quality assurance, that you're not just testing things when there's changes, because the ecosystem is so complex and things are changing at their own rate. To really plan and be reactive, if you will, to when things are changing, it becomes really challenging. And you're not always going to think about everything. So really building out a framework where you're thinking of things from end to end, not just this one app, this one website, this one user interface, but really the whole end-to-end experience from a user journey perspective. I'm a user, I want to go do this task or get this information to do this thing. What does that journey look like across your ecosystem of products, services, et cetera? And then how can I put a strategy or a framework together where I can evaluate that continuously? So whether it's automation, manual testing, regardless, you're in an environment that you're constantly evaluating things, and you're doing kind of what I'm starting to frame up now as continuous quality assurance. It's a big one for me.
How are you preparing your team for following that strategy?
Yeah, so really thinking outside of the individual products that they're at, really working with product to try to define a lot of these user scenarios, user workflows, user tasks, and then bring it into your test strategy and your frameworks. How am I thinking about things from end to end? New user registering an account, setting up my preferences, doing my single sign-on, going to this application, looking at this data, and continuously evaluating the entire workflow, not just this one module because this module is changing and I did my risk approach and I don't think these things are going to be affected, but really looking at kind of like your smoke test, right? Like smoking the pipes all the way from end to end, and a framework where you can, with low effort, evaluate those things on a continuous basis, regardless to whether or not you think there's going to be an impact.
Perfect. Talking about the following years, I would like to move to the next set of questions, which is more related to Gen AI and all the hype around this, especially for quality engineering and what it means. So, so what are the biggest challenges you have faced in integrating AI into your quality assurance processes, and how you have overcome them? if you have any particular example experience doing that type of thing.
So I can start. I don't have a lot, to be honest. Working in the regulated space, there's a lot of overhead and burden using AI and ML technology, and really the overhead to validating it and showing evidence to the FDA and other regulation bodies that it's consistent, that it's meeting your quality expectations from a framework perspective. One thing I've been doing recently and putting a lot of focus on right now is using AI and language models to help me look at post-market data. And for me, that's customer complaints. Maybe for others, it's your tech support calls or things, and really understanding like utilization data, post-market data, production data, and starting to use intelligence to categorize, build structure to it, highlight things, bring insights, flag things to me to investigate sooner than others. And then really I'm using it right now to try to formulate test data structures. You know, we're doing, let's say, 2 million surgeries a year on the products that I work on, and we're collecting all this data constantly. So when I'm doing representative customer tests, I'm going to go run algorithms on my data set and say, what's a long surgery for me and how do things evolve, and really using intelligence to bring information that then I have engineers take that information and develop their test strategies, and really looking for strategies, structures, and continuous improvement opportunities.
Thank you. Anything to add on this type of experience?
I can add a couple of use cases that we have recently used. They're more on the ML side, less on the AI side. One of the applications we applied with was based on code changes, identifying what test cases, automated tests to run to simplify and reduce the flakiness that we experience in like integration and end-to-end types of tests is one area that I feel it's less about Gen AI, but more on the ML side of things that we have applied that has helped improve efficiencies within our system. This is probably not a new concept. I'm sure like a lot of companies have tried and built out those systems. The other second area is similar to what you were talking about, is feeding in some of our incidents that happen and using that to draw any testing capabilities that we may be missing in our testing capabilities metrics that we have to ensure we continue to evolve that. Like for example, improving fault tolerance, having more chaos testing, and having specific examples of these are the services that have had highest impact on the incidents. How do we leverage that to improve testability and testing capabilities? And then the last one is around like customer contacts, analyzing that and identifying any gaps that we may need from a testing capabilities perspective.
So on one hand, in terms of like, we've actually integrated a fair amount of Gen AI into our products. And like many companies in the beginning, it's like chatbots, you know, and really creating these vastly open-ended experiences for customers, and trying to figure out how to test something like that is a completely different sort of job and mindset than most, you know, kind of typical quality focused roles. And so we really had to focus on expertise around the kind of conversations we expected people to have. You know, a lot of what we were doing in the beginning was really around prompt engineering and evaluation of responses, and needing to build tools or influence the tools that development teams were building in order to create the guardrails so that when you ask, you know, a chatbot how to make some extra cash, it doesn't tell you to sell drugs, which is a response we actually saw from the LLM, amongst other things like creating chemical weapons and all kinds of things. And so, you know, I mean, one, we needed to really make sure that people understood financial products. We needed to make sure that people understood the kinds of questions that people would ask and the different ways they would ask them. We even started using LLMs to evaluate LLMs and created a whole evaluation framework to rate and grade the responses based off of criteria we were creating. But on the flip side, in terms of like how we are integrating AI into our practices, I echo that, we have a lot of data that we collect and we create. We make a lot of, I would call them assumptions because we're not computers, around what risk it does exist. And so something that we're starting to do is take the data that we have and sort of say, did this actually have the same level of risk that we deemed that it did based off of the data we provided? We want to be able to, one of our sort of vision statements is that a developer is writing code and being able to pull in the data we have about production incidents and bugs, testability issues, all kinds of data, can actually say, oh, that file you're touching or that line of code you just deleted, that's actually led to 10, sub-zero incidents in the last year. You might want to make sure, your approval process is, or review process is a bit more thorough. Or you might want to go and say, why is this line of code here? And so we're trying to use it to, take what we're doing and amplify it. People are really scared because they are worried about job security. They are worried about not being needed. Something that I also did in our offsite last week was, when people were creating vision statements or problem statements, I would then run it through our internal LLM. And, sure, it could create these beautifully crafted vision statements or ideas about how to do something, but 20 to 30% of it was wrong, or it didn't apply, or you could you could confuse it. And so what I really was trying to help my team understand is that, like, this is a tool for us to use. And at the end of the day, though, like, our actual knowledge and our specialization, as long as we continue to learn about the new tools, is always, at least, I don't know, maybe the next 5 years or so going to be required.
I'm glad most of you were, your answers were more in the data analysis and this type of things, and not only generating test cases or test automation as many people. I feel that in the testing space, we are talking a lot about some specific topics around Gen AI, and we are not talking enough about how we are going to approach the testing of this type of system. And this brings me to the following question, the last one about AI, I promise, which is, are you concerned or worried about the impacts of developers using Gen AI for the testing activities? And this, I'm bringing this from a conversation I had last week with a tester who was saying, all my developers are using, since they are using GitHub Copilot, they are developing faster. So, but the team is not delivering faster because we are stuck at testing, and we typically find more bugs. So the whole process is messed up. So are you concerned? Are you experiencing something like that? Or have you seen a similar experience?
Well, let's see. I think it's amazing to not have to write functional integration tests by hand. That process was incredibly annoying and slow, and we tried to build, builders to do that, and we never quite got there. So I think that's an amazing use case, especially as everything becomes its own framework. Basically, you can kind of have the, LLM over time do the refactoring, and I think that's a wonderful thing. However, as we all know, having used Copilot, it does a lot of stuff wrong. So we are moving from this place where we're like writing the code by hand, right? Full-time coders to almost full-time reviewers, or right. And so, I think, having been building a lot of React components and tests for those things, all with the support of, OpenAI stuff, it's become more and more important for you to actually know how the things work, right? We always copy pasted from Stack Overflow. Maybe it leads to less people, but I have a hard time imagining in the next 5 to 10 years that you do not need people who really know how things work to utilize AI in a way that actually makes an impact. It's up there.
It's a prediction. Such a prediction.
Yeah, if AI is telling the only way to make more money is sell drugs, then there's obviously a long way for us to go to a point where, you know, we feel, or people should feel, threatened. I think the way I think about AI is it's a tool that helps us do our job easily, but it doesn't really replace the, like, I remember 15 years ago, everybody was like, QA is dead. Like, nobody's going to do any testing. Everything is going to be like, we're still here talking about quality. And I would say we have come back in full circles where now people do genuinely believe the human testing is how you actually find real customer experience problems and how customers would use product. Like the unit test stuff that we write, that Copilot generates, it's just gives us some safety net, but it doesn't really give you a true sense of how a customer would experience the product, and which is where I think the testers play a huge role, which will continue to happen as long as we continue to build, like the LLMs are also built by humans, if you all understand that.
I mean, I sort of think we all should be worried. It's not just testing, it's not just from a work perspective, but I try to think about it in terms of how curious can I remain, or can I help my team sort of focus any of that nervous energy towards curiosity, because there's been many waves of new tools and new ways to do things. You know, I mean, CI/CD, which we look at now and we go, oh, that, you know, of course, why wouldn't we want that? But I'm sure, you know, there were many people that were like, oh, well, if this happens, you know, what's going to happen to us? So I think if you know, at whatever capacity you can, you're investing in trying to understand these systems and understand how you can kind of partner with them. You know, I think that's what is most important.
I think you nailed it in that last statement, partnering with your intelligence. I think there's always going to need to be a human in the loop to, you know, craft inputs and evaluate outputs. If you think of a requirement, right? How often does a test engineer develop a test strategy with only the requirement, right? They have to talk to the developer. They have to get context. They have to understand their use case, their product, their customers, their environment. And those things don't naturally come through these types of intelligence. And you're always going to have a human in the loop to really evaluate and maintain things and make sure that it's moving in the right direction, providing you the outputs that you're expecting, and hopefully really optimizing, right, a lot of the work that you're doing.
I want to close with this part of the session with the final question, and then move to the Q&A from the audience.
Well, if I may, Federico, it's like a really great small leadership event. So I think for any Q&A, just come find you after. I'll put some music on. We'll announce the raffle prize. So no need for the Q&A from the audience, but you all need to connect with these speakers after. We're going to do a little bit more networking. So feel free to send us home and I'll announce the raffle prize winner.
Okay, you. You say. So the last one then is, what's the hardest lesson that you have learned as a leader? You can breathe a little bit first, and then answer.
I can take that one. For me, was understanding the amount of time, and I think Adam might have mentioned it earlier, the amount of time that it really takes to impact change or to bring forth change. It's not, you can have the greatest ideas, greatest presentation, everyone rallied in your conversation, but to really influence change within an organization takes time and it takes persistence. And for me, that's been one of my most eye-opening experiences. One, you can have the best strategy, everyone's aligned, right? We're gung-ho, we got goals, we got priorities, but staying persistent on it, because changing people's ways of doing things does not come easy, and it takes time. It's almost like muscle memory, right? And I think understanding that and staying persistent has been the biggest learning lesson.
Interesting.
I think the hardest lesson for me is technology is easy, people are hard. I think when you look at like problems and you're like, how am I gonna solve this? Like if you think about the technology, you can find a solution, but if having the right people in place that would help you solve that problem and keeping them engaged, motivated, inspiring them, making sure they have the skills and the motivations to continue, like that is the harder part in my opinion, in my experience.
Yeah, it's actually sort of funny. I promise I'm not copying you, but in the world of AI and robots are going to do all the things, I would say the most important thing that I've learned in the entire time that I've been managing people and running teams and stuff is sort of the, the vulnerability aspect, right? Early on in my career, I was managing big groups of people, and I felt like I always was supposed to have the right answer, and I felt like always, I couldn't admit that like I really didn't know the answer, and I actually didn't even know how to approach coming up with the solution. Over time, just really getting better at like saying, I really don't know, but I do believe that as a group, we're going to figure this out, and really focusing on like, what can humans do when we put our minds together, I think is, was the most important lesson that I learned in my career. Yeah.
I don't know that I have like a super profound answer in this, but I think just sort of acknowledging how different people are and how in such different ways people gain motivation, and as a leader, how you have to try to harness that or feed it or support people through different types of situations. I agree with everything that these gentlemen said, and I think that on a day-to-day basis, I'm still discovering things that I thought would be easy, aren't when it comes to people.
I think that's profound enough. Thank you so much. So as Tristan mentioned, we will have Q&A during more drinks or having more drinks, and right?
Do you mind if I go off script?
Please.
Sorry. Don't hate the messenger. First off, round of applause for Federico Toledo. Yes, we love you. You're the best. We do. Can we share this? Yeah, because you're gonna announce the winner. But before we announce the winner, and thank you so much, Abstracta, for supporting. I know you say drones, and I'm like, if it ain't broke. People love drones. They're fun. You can have a romantic getaway by yourself with someone. I don't know. Explore the world.
Someone else's romantic.
You could always be testing. That said, I want to ask first and foremost, because going back to this whole topic, y'all, we wanted to create an event where leaders, whether you're leading projects and or teams, you felt like there were other people in the local Bay Area that you could tap into. So before I announce this, quick show of hands, who met someone new today? Yes. Who met someone new today that they're going to talk after today? Talk to you after. Woohoo! Love it. Who still has questions for this panel? Love that. So panelists, look at them, find them after, because we're going to get the vibes going. And I want to say one last thing before we announce it. We have an amazing computer science student here today who is a sophomore. I wouldn't be a stage muffin and put you on blast, but just created a LinkedIn account. And when I asked them why they wanted to be here, they said because they wanted to learn from other leaders that are here. So do a solid to our aspiring future CEO and find them on LinkedIn. You're in good company. With that said, y'all, we're gonna wrap this up so y'all can hang out with each other. We did a random number generator, okay. And the winner, you had to be present. The winner is
Shashank.
Shashank?
Yeah, Shashank.
Yes, you.
Perfect.
And I have receipts. Round of applause. I have receipts. Okay. You friend. I didn't either. You can thank AI. And Abstracta. Thank you, Abstracta. And I want to say lastly to our amazing people at Dovetail, Alyssa, Leiden, Jeremie. We love you. Please find them on LinkedIn. Yes, find them on LinkedIn. And a big theme has been about leadership, community, learning new practices, and also friendship, because I've known these ones for a while. So if you love someone and you want to learn from someone, keep them in your life. That's all I have to say. One last thing from you.
Yeah. Also, thank you to Mariela.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Mariela has been part of the team for 8 years already. More than 8
She
years.
does not.
She's from Cuba. She spent a bunch of years in Uruguay. 5 years in eight in Uruguay. Okay, and now lives here in my timing. My perception of time. Yeah. So thank you for your support today as well. And I'm really happy to see faces that I wanted to see for a very long time, to reconnect with friends, also with you, Tristan.
This panel.
Amazing, really. And I hope we're gonna continue enjoying the evening. So yeah, let's grab some extra beers. And
That's it. Hang out, y'all. Make connections. Thank you, panelists. We love you. I'll play some tunes. Hang out. We got a patio or be out in here.